I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All right, today, inshallah, we are going to read from the fourth flash of the second station of the 22nd word. So, the fourth flash. To understand the title, think of the word flash, like when the sun heats the waves on the ocean and you see those sparkling bubbles appearing and disappearing. That sparkle is a flash. A ray, on the other hand, is like a beam of light shooting directly from the sun. But when that light hits the moving waves and creates that shimmering effect, we call that a flash. This text acts like a sparkle from the sun of the Quran. The truths here are reflections of Quranic truth. Let's dive in. It says, "Look at the colorful creatures swimming in the ocean of the heavens and scattered across the face of the earth. Look closely at these varied works of art." Imagine the whole world for a second. What do you see? It's colorful. Vineyards, gardens, flowers. God has placed hundreds, thousands of different types of art on this earth. Fruits, vegetables, plants. Think about it. A shapeless lump of iron isn't called art. But if you shape it into a needle, it becomes art. If you combine pieces to make scissors, that's art. If you make a frame and turn it into glasses, that's art. Once something has a shape, a purpose, a function, it's art. If we look at the universe this way, everything is a masterpiece. The text continues, "You will see that on every one of them is the inimitable seal of the eternal Son, a seal that cannot be faked. Just as we see stamps on life itself and on living creatures, we also see God's seal on the act of giving life. Think about it. God takes lifeless, unconscious, dead matter, brings it together, and creates a living thing. That is the act of giving life." Now, to help us understand this deep concept, the author uses an analogy. Analogies bring complex ideas closer to our understanding. Here is the analogy. Look at the sun. Its light reflects on everything, from the planets down to raindrops, down to tiny shards of glass, and even on sparkling snowflakes. You see a reflection, a miniature sun in all of them. The sun shines on the moon. Whichever side faces the sun gets bright. That brightness is a work of light coming from the sun. The same thing happens with raindrops or pieces of broken glass on the road. When the sun hits them, they sparkle. Even in snow, you've seen how snow glitters under sunlight? That's the sun's reflection. Now, here is the crucial point. If the sun didn't hit those objects, would they sparkle? No. That light is clearly coming from the sun. But if you refuse to admit that these tiny reflections come from the actual sun up in the sky, if you say, "No, I don't accept that this light comes from the sun," then you are forced into a corner. To explain that light, you would have to claim that every single raindrop, every piece of broken glass, and every snowflake has its own tiny, real sun inside it. That would be absolute madness. It's stupid. It's the same with the universe. If you don't accept that the light of life comes from God, you have to find a ridiculous explanation. I remember a story about this. There was a philosophy professor at a major university here. Some of our brothers were in his class. These guys were top students, really sharp. Every time this professor tried to deny God, they would raise their hands and shut him down with logic. Finally, the professor got fed up. He took a break, prepared for a month, and came back the next semester determined to silence them. He walks in, draws a line down the chalkboard. He says, "This side is science, this side is faith. To be scientific, you have to set limits, like Newton's laws work here but not there. But with God, you can't say God exists here but not there. Therefore, God is not a scientific topic, it's just faith. So don't talk about it in my class." One of the brothers raises his hand. "We can say that, Professor." The professor is shocked. "How?" The brother says, "Professor, look at atoms. If you claim that atoms have infinite knowledge, will, and power, that atoms in the sky know astronomy, atoms in rocks know geology, atoms in plants know botany, then sure, you can say God does not exist." You're basically giving every stone and bird a mind of its own. You're reviving ancient animism where everything has a spirit. Actually, you're going even further backward by giving godlike powers to atoms. He continues, "Since we don't believe rocks and atoms have brains, we say God exists. You just proved that denying God requires accepting something ridiculous." The professor didn't get it, so the brother used this sun analogy. He said, "Professor, imagine holding up 100 mirrors to the sun. They all shine. You can either say there is one sun up there reflecting in all of them, or you have to say there is a tiny sun inside every single mirror. Look at atoms. They act with incredible order. Either one God manages them with infinite knowledge, or every single atom is a genius with its own will and power. Which is it?" The professor stood there stunned. He muttered, This discussion isn't over," and walked out of the class. He didn't bring it up again for the rest of the year. The point is, looking at atoms forces you to realize something. Atoms are lifeless, blind, and unconscious, yet they create perfect order. Eyes, flowers, birds. You can't expect that from the atoms themselves. There has to be an external power managing them. The text says, if you don't attribute everything to the all powerful one, you have to accept that every atom has the attributes of a god. This is falling into the lowest depth of stupidity. Think about a seed. It looks like a tiny piece of wood, but inside it has the DNA, the code for the entire tree, roots, branches, fruits. It's like 500 books worth of information packed into a tiny speck. Could random atoms write 500 books? No. Someone with knowledge wrote that code. And look at how seeds have little wings to fly in the wind and plant themselves far away. Did the atoms decide, hey, let's grow wings so we don't crowd the mother tree? Of course not. They are being designed. If you cut the connection between the atom and God, you have to give that atom an all seeing eye and infinite consciousness. Since you can't do that, you have to accept God. The text gives us 3 windows to see this truth through atoms. First window, think of the military. A soldier belongs to a squad, a platoon, a company, a battalion, an army. He knows his place and duty in each one. He moves according to discipline. Now look at an atom in your eye. It acts like a soldier. It works within the pupil, the nerve system, the blood vessels, the brain. It interacts with your whole body perfectly. When you see a glass of water and reach for it, your eye, nerves, and muscles all work together. The atoms in your eye know their relationship to your hand. How? That tiny blind atom doesn't know biology. It shows it is following the orders of a commander who knows the whole system. Second window, the air. An air atom can enter any flower or fruit. It works inside them perfectly. If that atom is just a wandering bum with no boss, it would need to know the complex internal structure of every fruit and flower it visits. It would need to be a master tailor to sew the skin of the fruit perfectly. It implies that the atom is working for someone who knows everything. Third window, the soil. Take a pot of soil. You can throw in seeds for daisies, roses, peppers, anything. They all grow from the same pot. The soil consists of simple elements: carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, but somehow that same soil can build totally different plants based on the seed. If the soil atoms aren't acting under God's command, then every speck of soil needs to have a microscopic factory inside it capable of producing every plant on earth. It would need to know the specific shape and biology of a rose versus a pepper. That is impossible. Therefore, the soil acts under the command of one who knows all. In summary, the text says, if atoms are soldiers of God, everything is easy. Just like a king can move an entire army with one command, God can create anything easily. But if they are on their own, it's impossible. The atom is weak, it has no power, yet it carries heavy loads. It is lifeless, yet it acts with intelligence. This contradiction proves it is not working alone. It proves God's existence. Finally, looking at living things shows us two of God's names: Ihadiyat, oneness, and Samediyat, the eternal provider reality. Take a fly. God provides for it. For that fly to exist, it needs the sun, the air, the water, the specific temperature of the earth. God arranges the entire universe just to sustain that tiny fly. This shows Samediyat. God satisfies the needs of the creature by mobilizing the whole universe. And because God gives this specific attention to a single tiny creature, it shows. Ihadiyat, his personal oneness and focus. It's truly amazing. Every living thing reads the verses of God is one and God is the eternal refuge through its very existence. Understanding this raises our spiritual awareness. No matter how much we think we know God, there are always higher levels of understanding to reach. That's why we need to keep reflecting and studying all our lives. May God grant us true understanding. Glory be to you. We have no knowledge except what you have taught us. Indeed, you are the all knowing, the wise.